Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to talk about some of this news slash discussion slash mild, very mild controversy that has been going around over the past couple of days over an announcement that was made by the Collegiate program, Maryville Esports. They announced their roster for this upcoming year of Collegiate, and it includes a lot of names that might be familiar to some Overwatch League fans. Players like Mikey, False, King, and Juby, as well as Tree, a very highly regarded young DPS player, and Cyrus, another player in the Overwatch Tier 2 scene. As far as I'm aware, a support player, flex support maybe. I think he also plays DPS. He's kind of just on the team in like a mixed type of role on that roster. There's been some controversy and some kind of opinions on this because there are some people who think that this is a somewhat bad look for the future of Overwatch esports and whatnot, because if Collegiate is supposed to be a place where college players can hone their skills and can get better as a kind of as players, kind of hone their skills, become better players to potentially make it into the Overwatch League, isn't it unfair or bad to have players who are Overwatch League players able to play in the scene? And just kind of talk about my opinions from that a little bit, as well as give you my reason why I actually think that all in all, this is a very good thing for the Overwatch scene. So let's just start with the kind of the first thing of, is it bad that we have a team like Maryville signing a bunch of former Overwatch League players or some high-level Tier 2 talent that a lot of people expect to be Overwatch League talent at some point, namely Tree? My response to that is no. I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I actually think it's a very good thing for Collegiate as a scene. It's all pretty much connected. Tree is a different situation where Tree is 15 years old, and so a lot of people have been wondering, how is a 15-year-old player able to play in Collegiate? And they came out and said that he finished his GED. Basically, he finished high school early so that he could go play in Collegiate, try to get as much of college done before he most likely signs an Overwatch League contract in, when he's 17, 18 years old. That way he has some college under his belt, so he doesn't have to, go in and not have that kind of college life experience under his belt when he goes into the Overwatch League. And then, until then, he's going to be in college, obviously, doing all that type of stuff. That was with permission of his parents and all that type of stuff. So to me, that is fully, that is their decision. I'm not going to sit here and tell you whether or not that's a good or a bad thing. If that's what he wants to do and he's able to do it and he's able to succeed, if he's able to complete high school and his GED at the age of 15, why not? It's interesting. I think it's like one of those things where, if that's something he's able to do and he's able to do well, more power to him. Good on him, obviously. I think if you're in Collegiate, you should focus on your schooling. I think that should be your main focus. But that is what it is. You can do what you need to do, and you can kind of view it as you need to view it. That's my opinion on it. But in general, when it comes to creating and cultivating the Collegiate scene, I think it's very important that as many players who are Overwatch League talent, have been Overwatch League talent, whatever it may be, I think it's very important for as many of those players as possible to go into Collegiate to help legitimize the scene. I think that the future of esports in North America in particular has to embrace and involve the Collegiate level scene. I think this is a really big deal that I don't think people who have been... I think if you're a fan of esports and have never been involved in esports, or if you're someone who was lucky enough to make it to esports, build a following, and are able to basically just, after your Overwatch League career, whatever esport you play after your career, go into streaming or something and make a living that way because you have managed to kind of make a living saving up some money from doing competitions, and then you're able to stream and you're able to kind of afford your own income and afford to survive that way. I think if you can do that, that's great and that's fantastic. The reality is most pros, that isn't going to be what happens with them. And I think when you look at the way that socially and culturally esports and just professions in general are viewed here in North America and in the US in particular, to me, you need to embrace a scene where players can go, get a degree, put themselves in a position to succeed outside of esports, and then in the event that esports does not work out for them as a career, they have not put themselves behind by, grinding at trying to get a spot in an esport for 4, 5, 6, maybe, years, and they're in their mid to late 20s and they haven't gone to college. They don't have really a resume that kind of speaks for themselves. And so their options are either to work pretty poor jobs that don't pay a lot of money or put themselves in debt to go to college later in life. But if they can go to college on a potential scholarship and play their esport that they really, really enjoy and potentially turn that into a career while also getting an education, getting a degree, all that type of stuff, that is what I think is the most important thing for the future of esports, and like I said, specifically the future of esports in North America. Because one of the things that I am under the something that I've been told about, I've seen kind of stuff talk about, and I don't necessarily know exactly how true this is because I am from the US, so I don't necessarily know how everything operates in other parts of the world. But specifically in South Korea, where a lot of esports talent nowadays comes from, a lot of the best players in the world come from South Korea. I've been given the impression, based on things I've read and seen, that in South Korea, they don't really care how you get your profession that you get, just that you have the ability to kind of make a living and care for your family, right? There's not really that type of thing that you have here in North America and in the US, where it's like, if you don't get a college degree and you work a job that is, viewed as a little bit lesser than something like a customer service type of job, a food service type of job, anything like that, where you're not paid super well because people think it's not worth paying for, that's not as much of a problem in other parts of the world, where I think that the focus really is just making money and having the ability to care for your family and put food on the table, provide for your family in a way that's more open-ended. So my understanding is that a lot of people don't really care if you don't go to college, if you're able to, at 16, 17, 18 years old, immediately get into a profession where you're making money, right? Like esports, right? If you're able to become an esports athlete, like right out of college, or right out of high school, I should say, they don't really care if you don't go to college because you've made money. You've shown that you can make a living, and then that's something that you can turn into stuff later, right? You can use that professional experience for something else. You can become a streamer. Obviously, in South Korea, there's a military requirement, so that also, I think, has some level of impact on kind of how you go about creating, a revenue for yourself and all that type of stuff. So I think there is a cultural difference between how esports are viewed here in the US and the West in general versus how they're viewed in, say, South Korea and even, say, China, which is a whole different situation where esports are kind of being cracked down more because gaming is being cracked down a little bit more in China. So that's a different situation in of itself. But specifically here in North America, here in the US, I think collegiate has to be the thing that is embraced when it goes to the creation of the future of esports. I, for those who don't know, was in college. I have since graduated college. And when I was in college, I was involved a little bit. I wasn't like super involved in like the operation side of things, but I was involved and worked closely with the esports club at my university. And I helped with certain things like video editing, like creating some like montage and stuff like that, like helping with that type of stuff. I did some of that kind of stuff a little bit behind the scenes to kind of help create some content for them and worked closely with them. And one of my roommates was very much involved with that as well. So I know what goes into the operation of esports in colleges. Some get a lot more support than others, which is the nature for things in sports and athletics and esports in general. Some groups and some institutions just get more revenue, more resources to kind of help them succeed. But I think that the real key needs to be that the collegiate scene, I think, needs to get way more support from the major developers and the major esports publishers, I think they themselves should be investing more in the collegiate scene. Because I think the reality is that you can support tier 2 all you want, and I think that the real problem with the tier 2 scene now is that it's kind of like a dead end, where it's kind of like you're chasing a goal that you either achieve or just don't even get close to achieving, seemingly, and it just kind of puts you back, and you're just kind of at a point where you've put all this time in and effort, and you don't really get anything out of it because there's not that much money in tier 2 esports and tier 2 Overwatch in particular. And one of the problems, especially when you look at things like Overwatch or League of Legends, in the West, the resources are not that big, and so you just end up fighting with a lot of people for a very small number of spots. There's only a very small amount of players from the US who are really, really, really good in the Overwatch League, who are top level competitors in the Overwatch League. And in League of Legends, NA never does all that well on the global stage. It's always South Korea that does a lot better because they have put more time and effort and investment, and there's a lot more social acceptance of esports in that way. But I think if colleges and universities embrace it more, I think if companies like Riot, like Activision Blizzard, put more money into investing in collegiate esports scenes, we'd see way more kind of elevation of that. I know a few years ago, the Florida Mayhem ran collegiate tournaments. They ran one that was both like a more broad tournament, and then they ran one specifically for teams in Florida. I know the Boston Uprising have run tournaments like that as well in the past. And I think that's a really big deal, and I think that's one of the things that you need to be better about. Organizations and the Overwatch League themselves, they need to provide more means for players from different backgrounds, and especially kind of provide more opportunities for players to go through a collegiate system instead of just making them go through tier 2. And I think it would be really, really good if going forward, Contenders events, Contenders tournaments, those big tournaments every year, were not just for Contenders teams, but also for collegiate teams. That performing well in collegiate automatically qualified you to these Contenders tournaments, because that would legitimize the collegiate scene as well. It would be the type of thing where if you do well in collegiate, you will get to compete with the best of the best in tier 2. You'll get to have opportunities to play against other players in tier 2. And so if I'm a player in collegiate, that motivates me to say, I can do well here, I can get my degree, and I also get the ability to play in the same tournaments, have access to the same money that players in tier 2 also have access to, right? I think you could do like a separate tournament early on that you basically qualify into both collegiate teams and just regular tier 2 teams. So they go into this one big tournament that kind of has the top players, top teams from both of those types of things. They get put into a bracket, whatever, they compete to play, and they see who wins, right? You look at a team like Maryville Esports, that's a good team, not just in collegiate, that's also a good team in just a Contenders tier 2 scene in general. But collegiate has never really been viewed as a viable path or a viable option. You look at the Contenders or the collegiate teams in Liquipedia, most of them don't even have pages, right? Like players who are really good players who have been really, really, really high level elite talent for years and years and years that don't even have pages, that their organizations don't have any type of reference or mention. And a lot of the collegiate stuff is all community based. It's all community run. And I think you need to put more investment into the collegiate scene to let it grow, to let players have more pathways into that path to pro. Let's give you a path to pro, but not just a path to pro for this is how you can become an Overwatch League pro. This is how you can become a pro in general. This is something that you can use the skills and the team aspect that you get by playing this game. And maybe you don't get into the Overwatch League, but at the very least, you can use that experience and those skills to elevate you as a person and as an individual and get you into those other positions in life, other jobs, whatever, that you can enjoy because you have found a place to cultivate more than just your skills as a gamer, but also as a person in general. And so I do think it is really important that Collegiate gets embraced. I think it's important that Collegiate grows. And so I am 100% on board with everything with Maryville Esports. I think they have done a very good job at bringing people into the scene. I think that we've seen that with Harrisburg in the past. Redbirds have done it in the past. I think it's a very good thing for the scene. I think it's ultimately the best thing when you can kind of grow the collegiate scene and get collegiate players involved. So that's my takeaway. Let me know in the comments down below your thoughts. If you agree, disagree, if you think Collegiate should get a lot of really good big names in it, if you think it should be a viable tier 2 option, or if you think that more money should go specifically into kind of Contenders first and then Collegiate second, whatever your thought process is. I think the reality is both of those need to get the money they need, but I think that there should be a push to kind of encourage players who have not been to college to go into Collegiate rather than going to Tier 2, going into Contenders, because I think that Collegiate is just a better path as a whole because it gives you more to kind of work with when your playing career is over. But that's just me. That's my thought. Like I said, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. That's going to be all for me for today. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did and want more like this in the future, consider liking and subscribing, as your support does help out a bunch with the channel. But that's all for me for today. Thank you all once again. Hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye-bye.